Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks for making your way here for checking out the series. Of course, you know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out new interviews just like this one every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. And it's no mystery that she's one of my all-time favorite artists. Shirley Manson of Garbage is back. Hello.
Hello, hello.
It's so great to have you back. The band's got the new one. Let's all we imagine be the lights. And what a gorgeous title. What an incredible album. There's the compliments right away.
I love this. I love how this interview is shaping up.
I can just do this the whole time. Nothing but
Yeah,
compliments.
just say lovely things and I'll be like a pig in shit.
It's
Thank you so much. That's
yeah.
very kind of you. I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to me. We've been talking to each other for years, and every time we bring out new records. It's always a joy when the people who have supported you like are happy with your work.
Yeah. Well, I remember there was one interview that you said, you don't think you've ever made a bad Garbage has never made a bad record. And I agree with that. Garbage has never made a bad record. And it's also like once you say something like that, it's like, oh, that's a challenge to the next record, right? It's like, can the streak continue? And this record is so good, and it's still different. I think, in my view, this record, well, like No Gods, No Masters sort of set up what this record gets to become. Um, because it's a very pointed record. A lot of the songs. I mean, I don't know if takedown is the right word. I don't think that's the right word, but there's some, ferocious moments on here. Um, and to have a title like that, let all that we imagine be the light. I think that's the surprising part to me. That with everything that you're talking about on this record, that there's still optimism as the the umbrella. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, I agree. I think No Gods, No Masters and Let All That We Imagine Be the Light are sort of twin records. They're coming at the same thing from completely different angles. Um, and I think the new record is ultimately about sort of resilience, and resistance and hope and an eye to the future with the possibility of, uh, you know, uh, survival. um, I mean, in some ways, it's a very melancholic record, but I realized that coming out of No Gods, No Masters, if I didn't change my tack, then I was going to lose my mind because No Gods, No Masters was very sort of it's kind of what I call it was a forewarning of where I felt the world was heading. And now, 5 years later, of course, we're at exactly the point that I suspected we would be. So there was no point in employing the same kind of levels of rage or concern because it was too late for all of that. Here we are, 5 years down the line. And I was saying to myself, how are you going to survive this as a person struggling to sort of make a sense of what felt like a very chaotic, destructive world. And I know the world's always been troubled, but it does feel to me very much that we're on the sort of precipice of something. I feel like humankind, we have a choice to make. We've all got a very hard choice to make and how we're just going to navigate and negotiate a brand new world. It's not the old world is dead, and we now live in a new world that's we're talking about AI, we're talking about you know uh, all manner of things that we human beings never could even have imagined 100 years ago. So we're going to have to employ some different tactics, I think, in order for us all to survive. Otherwise, we're going to go the way of ancient Greece or Rome or Egypt or so yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a rant, but that's kind of where this record was born.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, that was my suspicions on it too. I mean, and you're right because I love the way you said that No Gods No Masters was, sort of the cautionary part of it all, not a cautionary tale by any means, but I was just talking with a friend, a coworker, and I said, we're now at that point where you don't even have to be super famous, but even if you are, Springsteen, you know, is out of the country and he says something and suddenly you've got the dude in the White House saying, I might not let you back in. I was like, that feels like those stories that I would read about Russia from way back in the day, and for it not to be on our doorsteps, but all of this to be in the house, at this.
Yeah, if it's just astounding, isn't it, really? I
Yeah.
mean, it really does feel like we're dealing with an administration that's run by angry adolescent
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
boys. I mean, I can't believe how low we have all fallen, it's kind of astounding that we've got these sort of really punitive leaders, in inverted commas, threatening individual citizens because they happen not to be a great fan of, oh, I don't know. I just lose my ability to articulate my frustrations and my dismay. I'm astounded. How the hell did we end up here? I really I don't know. But we are here, and we are going to all just have to muddle on through, and we're all going to have to figure out a way of getting along because there's so much polarization, which seems so tedious to me. I mean, ultimately, we all want the same things, right? But how we're choosing to get them we have disagreements on, and some of those disagreements are based around one side's like violent streak or their hateful streak,
Mhm.
or their destructive streak, etc., etc. And so I think we all just need to really calm it all down. Because if everything feels really polarized, everything's black or white. Everybody's right or they're wrong. Everybody's hailed as an icon or they're cancelled. I mean, there just not seems to be no nuance or
Sure.
no room for a difference of opinion. It's nuts. It feels literally like it reminds me of high school, being at high school.
Right. Right. Well, you talk about, not being able to articulate it, but at the same time, like, is this what I'm hearing about in this song? Are you happy now?
Yeah, I mean, I just think my personality, unfortunately, is strong and it seeps into everything I do. I can't keep my personality out of it, and my personality is one that wants to furiously engage with the world, and I can't help but I care. I really do actually care. I'm one of those really old-fashioned, uncool, cliched characters that really care and really want. I want I want to see our communities thrive. I want people to be happy. There's, again, really like almost simpleton like. I'm a simpleton with simpleton desires, and I don't want to see suffering. I don't want to see pain. I don't think there's any reason for us to inflict all that on anybody else. So how do we figure it out?
Well, that's and to go to the dark place just a little bit, like,
We're already in a dark place,
yeah,
Kyle.
that's
Don't kid
true.
yourself. You're
Yeah,
talking to
right.
a
Okay.
goth.
Permission granted.
Okay.
You know, if you follow you online, like, we know what you've gone through to even get to this record. You had a major loss in your life last year. There were health issues. I know Gaza's been on your minds daily. It's like to even be able, I don't know, to get in front of that microphone, to even be able to conjure up these words, to have some hope at the end. I mean, it shouldn't be impressive, but it is. Uh, you know,
Well, I don't think so. I mean, look, I've been a really fortunate person. I've had a blessed life. I have not had kind of the challenges that so many people have. Have I had a tough couple of years? Absolutely. I've been bedbound at times. I've suffered with a lot of physical pain. I've had two hip replacements in 2 years, which is a lot. Um, and I lost my beloved dog, the love of my life, and that was awful. But in the great scheme of things, to lose a beloved animal is not like losing a human being. It's not the greatest of tragedies, but I felt like the stuffing had been knocked out of me. I didn't feel much joy, and I had to employ a lot of um I ended up having to employ some patience, which I've never employed in my life. And I had to employ some discipline, which I've never really been particularly disciplined in my life, in order to regain my physicality. I had to go to rehab, and that takes a lot of patience, and tiny little increments of improvement happen. But it's frustrating and it's long and it's unglamorous. So yeah, I had to like just think about my place in the universe differently than I have in the past. I've enjoyed such robust health. I've never had a problem physically in my life,
Wow.
so all of a sudden I'm literally like rolling around the Beverly Hills doctors' departments, in my sweatpants, no makeup on, and a Zimmer frame. I think, I don't know what you call it, walking frames
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah, yeah.
super OGs use, and I felt like so defeated and so old and over and frightened and fragile. And yeah, I felt some deep, deep shame, which is so perverse. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel like that, when their bodies fail them or their minds fail them. And I think we all experience shame, and it's nuts. I'm like, what? Eventually, I was like, what are you ashamed of? You should be proud.
Right.
You've survived this, and you're thriving.
There's a bit of a roundabout way into the song with what you're talking about with Chinese Fire Horse there. I'm wondering, I guess. I don't want to assume anything because, when I hear that, there is something about what critics, what labels, how they talk about any artist who's over, I don't know, 50, 45, whatever that is.
Well, it's not any artist. That's the point of the
Uh,
song. It's
yeah,
mostly directed at women.
sure.
Criticisms about age. Like someone like Bob Dylan, as he should be, is revered as an elder statesman in the world of music.
Hmm.
Someone like Chrissy Hind, who is a phenomenal artist, writer, guitar player,
Mhm.
guitar hero, etc., etc., it's insinuated, that she's not as beautiful as she once was. She's not called a genius, and though I would argue she is.
Absolutely.
Her talents are sort of diminished because it doesn't fall necessarily in line with the more traditional patriarchal sort of uh, thinking that has essentially built the music industry as we know it today. Was designed by men a long time ago and remains favorable to the male way of doing things.
Yeah.
And women, it's insinuated to women, as it was insinuated to me. I was 53 years old, promoting our last record, and two different journalists on the same day. One was a female journalist, one was a male journalist. They asked me on separate occasions if I was going to retire. And I'm thinking, I'm 53 years old and you're suggesting I retire. Like, what? I don't even understand this thinking. I don't even know where that's those questions come from.
Mm.
And I was really caught off guard by it. And it was only really in retrospect that I'm like, wow, how dare you speak to me like that? How dare you insinuate because I'm a woman who's in her 50s, I no longer have agency in my career. That is absolute nonsense. And so this sentiments are spilled out whilst we were making this new record. And yes, I probably did feel vulnerable, but I also felt sort of empowered. The more and more I did rehab, the more and more physically powerful I became again, and I renewed my sense of sort of purpose, and I renewed my vigor, and I wanted to talk about that experience because I feel like a lot of women in all walks of life encounter the same kind of bigotry. And I think it's tiresome. And not only is it older women that encounter this bigotry, but it's young women who are learning, from our societies about what the possibilities are for them as they grow older. And I just want young women to know there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of.
Mm.
You can hold your own agency into your 70s and 80s, like many of my musical heroes have continued to do, whether it's Grace Jones or Patti Smith, um, Chrissy Hynde, Debbie Harry, Stevie Nicks, Shaka Khan. The list is endless at this point. We see all these amazing women holding, a lot of creative agency in their careers, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And even just piggybacking on something that you said a minute ago, because the fact that you felt shame when there was never a need to feel shame because that was embedded somewhere, you know.
Yeah, I'd been
that-
taught somewhere that it was
right.
shameful to be broken,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I guess that through experience, I'm like, what nonsense? It can happen to anybody at any time. We're all really vulnerable.
Yeah. Ha Do you notice, or even if it's there, like, has it changed then how you write about it? Because, like I said, there's something about these lyrics, and I've not been able to pinpoint it exactly. I wish I could verbalize better, but but there is something different about the way you're writing on this record that I don't feel like I've ever heard you write in this way before in the past. And that's what I'm wondering. Is it just the way that you're attacking the situation, whatever the situation is that you're writing about? I mean, do you feel that it comes differently at all?
I love that you said that's one of the nicest things anybody has ever said to me because I feel very much the same way, and it was a deliberate decision I made coming into making this record um, for a lot of different reasons. I realized that in No Gods, No Masters, everyone perceived that record as really aggressive,
Mm.
and to me, I was just being really forthright. But over the course of the 5 years, I've realized for the first time in my life that I have a personality that doesn't necessarily fit with my intent. My intentions as a human being are actually one of kindness. Like people always talk about how scary I am, how aggressive I am. And I'm always like, I don't understand why people think I'm like that, you know. And I started to understand, oh, it's how you're coming across, not who you are, but how you're coming across. And I wanted to shift something in my writing. It was a deliberate, it was conscious. I was like, you need to like change the way you're expressing yourself so that you can express yourself better. And I really was determined. I felt that the world at the time of writing the record and since, I felt the world was really hard and dark and cruel. And I realized the one thing I wanted to make sure happened whilst making this new record of ours was that it was imbued with love. Like I was projecting love out of myself into the world and into our work. Because you know the old cliche where they say, be the change you want to see. So this is the beginnings, I guess, of me realizing that I have not expressed myself well.
Yeah, I won't agree with you completely on that because I love so much of those past songs only in that way, by the way. But I love the way that you are saying it. It's for me to do two compliments in one right there. But,
But I love that you picked up on that because you know it was a big thing for me to try and become like to try and shape your writing. You know, after being a writer in this band now, you know what, for 30 years,
right.
to actually actively make a creative decision feels really exciting. You know,
Yeah.
and you hope as an artist, oh, if only one person picks up on that, that's magic, and you've just picked up on it. So you know, it's like that's magic for me, and I feel like job done. Whew,
Yeah.
great.
Well, I haven't done the count yet, but I also think maybe there's more fucks in this record than there's ever been before. Which isn't to say that you
I
give no fucks, because it sounds like it's because you give a lot of fucks.
give a lot
Literally.
of, I literally give a lot of fucks. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's funny, because you know, I've gotten a lot in the neck for being outspoken about Ukraine and Gaza, and I I have to accept that I'm going to get it in the neck. And I hope that people know it comes from love. It certainly doesn't come from any resentment or desire to hurt anyone else, other than to speak out about what I'm seeing feels, you know, absolutely urgent to me. But I've been fascinated by people like myself who have been outspoken about the like tens of thousands of civilian deaths. We are the ones who are being couched as rude and cruel and anti Semitic and violent and dangerous. And the people that are quiet and polite, they're immune from criticism, you know. But I think to be silent is complicit, you know. If you don't speak out and voice your horror, then it must be assumed that you're supporting it. Now, I'm not saying that that is logical or that that's right, but I do think it's true, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't like this whole notion of sort of politeness in society. Like if you're not swearing or you're not confessing to your failings and your vulnerabilities and your sins, then somehow you're a loser. You know, the politeness. I think you should be respectful, but I don't believe in this idea that, you know, you can't swear. And if you swear, you're vulgar and disgusting. And I don't know. I just all these silly little rules that actually don't amount to much.
No,
Like, how about we just all respect one another
sure.
and want the same things for each other that we want for ourselves?
Yeah. And I can say even, as a fan, of course, of you all, but of a lot of the artists that I admire, that I turn to, you know, I won't say there's expectations. That's definitely not true. But I find that the artists that I invest the most time in are the ones that do make a stand, take a stand in some way. I was talking with another artist yesterday, and he was saying that he kind of came up in the shut up and sing era, the late 90s, early 2000s, where you'd be chastised for that, and definitely that, didn't even know about the noise of the internet and the way it is now. But he said now when he looks back, he felt like he was a coward, and he's kind of changed in the same way. It's like now is the time for him at least to make that stand.
Well,
And
it's different for everybody, though,
sure,
right? I mean, I
right.
understand that I am equipped to speak out, to speak my mind. I'm well equipped for it. My father taught me well. He used to debate me, every night at the dinner table. My dad would debate me, and he taught me to stand my ground and believe in what I'm seeing or feeling or thinking, and try to do good. That was my dad was religious. Um, he drilled these ideas of thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not
Mhm.
steal. He drilled these 10 commandments into my brain. Now, although I rejected organized religion, I still think the fundamentals, the tenets of any organized religion are pretty solid, right?
Sure, right.
It's not too taxing to fall in line with the principles. Um, but I also don't want to be a dictator to another artist or another human being, and and expect them to be as outspoken as I am, because some people are very fragile and they cannot speak up. It's too much for them. It's too pressured. It's too scary. I get that.
Mhm.
Um, but there are, consequences to all your decisions.
Sure.
And you are the only person who can decide what is comfortable for you and what you're willing to live with and what you're unwilling to live with. And I get that. Like, I think that's okay. I don't think every artist needs to be speaking out. I would prefer that they did, but I certainly don't blame them if they don't.
Right. And that is the thing. I mean, I was trying to think of the line that Dylan used on that last record, but basically saying we all have layers, right? And
Yeah. And all these layers come to to the surface and recede again, depending on where you are in your own life.
mm,
I think there's a lot of people who are just trying to get by right now. They're trying to pay their own bills, or they've got sick family members, or they themselves are, under duress. So, the layers of who we are as human beings come and go, and we all make mistakes, and we all have our shining moments, and that's just part and parcel, I think, of being a human being.
yeah, as long as you mean well at the end of the day.
Yeah, as
Yeah,
long as you are not hurting anyone.
right. As long as you're not hurting anyone. Right.
Yeah.
Um, I'll switch up just a little bit because we were talking about as you were saying, thinking about this and the last record as sort of sister records to each other. But there is a little bit of a difference in the sound, which is always interesting with Garbage because every record sounds different. It's a different attack from the music side of things as well. And how did you all come to this one? Because there is a strong synth vibe in this one. Cold gets used, but it's not a cold sound. It's just more of a, I don't know. I mean, that synth sound, I feel like, is very much echoing what you're saying or vice versa.
Well, the way that we made this record this time around was really different for us. I was on my own at home,
Hmm.
and the rest of the band were working together at Butch's home studio. And the three others, Butch, Duke, and Steve, they would send me musical pieces
Hmm.
that I would then work around and, arrange and adapt to fit the vocals. And that's really different for us. We've never done that before in the 30 years that we've worked together.
Yeah.
And I don't know really what they were thinking, if indeed they had a specific idea in mind or not. I wasn't there, so I just have to assume they did what they always do, which is they get into a room and start playing together. And I know that we all do try and come to each record with a slightly different approach. We've got no interest really in. I know a lot of bands are just like, this is what we do, and we're going to stick to it.
Mhm.
And they can be very successful doing that, like just honing that one vein. We have not done that in our career, and we've tried every record to do something different, and use different instruments and different sounds. And I know that they were talking a lot about John Carpenter and all these sort of like,
Uh-huh.
mid-80s horror like movie soundtracks um and there was obviously a dark sort of, I would say, to me it's cinematic. Like when I got the music at first, and I felt like, how on earth am I going to make a song out of this? Like I don't even know where to start, when the music that came through through the ether, for The Day I Met God. I literally said to my husband, what the hell am I supposed to do with this?
And what an ending, by the way. What an ending to the
Oh, yeah,
record.
it's fantastic ending, and it's a fantastic
Yeah.
song. And it forced me to, as you so rightly pointed out, really write differently. And so yeah, this is our sort of opus, like the grand opus. Um, so yeah,
So
but
meeting the music, yeah, because there was another one when I first heard "Have We Met," the very first time I heard "Have We Met." I mean, obviously, there's another story that you're telling there, but when I heard the music, and I think you more or less sort of confirmed it, like that's what I started thinking is like, I wonder if the music came to her and she met the music
yeah,
because it kind of
I met the
feels like that.
music.
Yeah.
I met the music for sure. It felt like every time I got an email from them, it was sort of like a gift, because I was bedbound and I was miserable.
Hmm.
And then through the post, as we used to say,
Hmm.
through the post came these sort of musical pieces, and they eventually kind of really sort of sparked my imagination. Um, yeah, so I'm grateful that our system got disrupted,
Yeah.
after 30 years of working together. Of course, you have working patterns and habits, and that was just completely disrupted with this record, which I think ultimately was a great thing, although it's not one I would want to repeat.
Yeah, right. It was because you all released the covers record in between. I know those covers had been recorded all over time. Love My Way was on there. Was that one done around the same time? And I'm asking because when I heard that the first time when Love My Way came out, and I thought, I wonder if this is what to expect from the next record, and it kind of was.
Interesting, because I had already recorded that vocal some time ago over a very basic track that Steve had sent me, and I'm talking years and years ago. Um, but the band built up the musical landscape around that vocal. But that's an interesting observation. That I never even thought about that. I think you're probably onto something there.
Yeah.
Um,
Great cover, but great reading of that
I
stuff.
love it so much.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of it. I was like, yeah, I was just like, oh my God, I love this so much. This is sort of a fine tribute to my darling Richard.
Hmm. That's I love it. Do you ever and again this is me I'm definitely imposing on this one. Do you ever think of any of your songs as an answer to a previous song? And I will say specifically Sisyphus, and I started thinking about Fix Me Now and sort of Sisyphus being, you know, if not an answer, then a future
You're a
version of that
clever little
person.
shit. Not because that was deliberate, and it wasn't something I was aware of until I was putting together the set list for our recent shows in South America.
Mm.
And I deliberately chose Fix Me Now to put in the set
Oh
because
wow.
I felt it was really pertinent, obviously, to the situation we all find ourselves in. But now that you just said that to me, I think you're absolutely right. They could be companion pieces because
Mm.
it's sort of dealing with the same. thing. Fix Me Now was on our first record, and they were some of the first lyrics I'd ever written. And it was this sort of idea about how to fix chaos, how to fix desperation, and how to fix broken things. And Sisyphus is sort of it's almost like a witch's spell or an incantation of some type of some sort. I always imagine myself sort of lighting candles to all the forces that I was trying to employ to recover from my surgeries.
Mm.
And I'm sort of lighting candles to all these amazing forces that can pull you through something. And also, I feel like I was lighting candles to others who were as feeling perhaps as vulnerable as I am. So it's sort of like a prayer um, to to survival and to recovery and to good health and to happiness.
Yeah. Well, I love knowing that they can possibly play together then, especially live. I
Yeah,
love when those happen. That's
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well picked up on though. You've
Oh,
still got it, Meredith. You still got
still
it.
got it. Still got it after all these years, I guess.
Yes.
That's a fun part, by the way. You brought the set list, and and a lot of us, for us nerds, of course, we're looking at that stuff too, because each new tour, like, there's the opportunity, I guess, to sort of resurrect something if you wanted to that hasn't been. And how often do you know, mix that around throughout the tour? Because I mean, you all do play, a lot of the songs that people would expect, but for us, the ones that would see multiple shows, there is that moment like, oh, what else are we going to hear this year? Kind
Mm. You know, it's funny again that you should say that because I've been thinking a lot about that because I feel like as a band, we've always wanted to be in service to the fans.
of.
We understand like fuckload of money to buy a ticket to a show now. And you've got parking costs
Mhm.
and you've got, beverage costs. The list is endless. It's a lot, it's an investment for someone to come to a show now. And so we've always tried to sort of bear that in mind, and we want people to walk away happy. Like we want people to feel like they got what they came for.
Mhm.
But lately, I feel, also there's a difference of opinion in the band. Like I've often tried to drop some of the more popular songs for some of the more obscure songs, and I've met with some resistance in the band. So I would happily play a set of all the completely obscure songs.
Mhm.
I just don't know how good the fans would feel about that. And, I do, it does concern me,
Yeah.
that it's hard to balance. We're not the kind of band that just go and play whatever we want, like we're only playing the songs you've never heard before, That's not our style either. I wish I could be like that in a way, but
But
I
there's a
just
nice middle ground.
I think so. I mean, I
Like
try to
so
make sure.
yeah, I see Pearl Jam a lot. I know those guys and everything, and I see them whenever I can. Of course, they're famous for a different set list every night, but you're always going to get Even Flow or Better Man or something like that. Of course, they're playing like 30 songs a night or whatever, but but that's one of the things they, consider for their longevity is because they've cultivated such a base that yes, if you came for to hear Black, you're going to hear it tonight. If that's the only song you're going to hear it tonight. But but for the fans who will stay with us, who are not fair weather fans, I guess is what I'm saying,
Right.
that are going to be there. Like those songs are going to be different every night. And even
Yeah.
if it's like three songs that are different, I think that changes the game for a lot of fans. Then it becomes a game, a very fun game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's funny. I've been thinking about this a lot, so I will continue to ponder. Um, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. We've got so many songs now. That's the problem. It's like, and we're not a band that believes in a 3 hour set. It's just not
Mhm.
really our style.
Mhm.
I feel like that's a lot to ask of an audience, and I know artists do it, and fans love it, but it's just not really for us. So that
Sure.
seems like an awful long time,
Not for everyone.
and
Yeah, I
not for
agree.
everyone.
Yeah.
And so when we are putting a set together, we've started to come to the point where I'm like, okay, we need to like play something at least from every album. And by the time you've got through, eight albums, you're halfway through the set.
Right.
So, it's like, fuck, I don't quite know. Sorry, I keep swearing. I'm really sorry.
Keep swearing. This
Um,
is swear
you can
away.
beat me out. But yeah, trying to get enough. Like, we just have too many songs now. It's just too
Yeah.
much.
Isn't that the best problem though, right there?
It's a
That's a
gorgeous problem.
yeah. Even like, I mean, Taylor Swift, that's a 3 hour show, but it is the same set every night, except for whatever their fans call those, the secret songs or whatever. Like there's that one, and it's usually like two or three songs that are kind of different every night. And and when you consider ticket prices and we talked about, how expensive the Taylor tour was, but you still had people going to multiple shows, one because they're in the fan base or whatever, but how they again that became the event for them every single night.
Yeah, amazing.
What's going to be the secret songs,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a lot, though. I mean, Taylor's still young,
sure.
That's a hard candle to
I'm not trying to
burn.
sell you on the 3 hour show, by the way. That's
Please don't. I'm not capable of it. I'm not that badass. I'm a weakling.
but as a absolute nerd of your band, if there's one song that's different, even every couple of nights, it's like, yeah, we're gonna eat it up. I promise you. That's
Yeah, but then see what you get. This is what I have learned is if you change things up, then people get upset. Why didn't you play that on our
no.
night,
Hmm.
And so sometimes I think I feel it's just more fair to go, you know what, this is this tour set list.
This is it.
Everybody's getting the same show.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting something that nobody else did. And I think that was how I was brought up. Like my mum was always like really fair. Like, it was always like, no, you only get two fish fingers because that's what your sister got and that's what your other sister got, and nobody got no more, no less. And I,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how I feel when I'm putting sets together.
That's
I'm
interesting.
like being mummy. It's Mary Poppins stuff.
Well, and to your point, I saw Joan Jett was it last year or whatever, and I didn't know that Joan she has two sets and she just rotates them night after night, back and
Oh
forth.
wow.
And I came in and we were talking backstage, and I brought up three songs that I was kind of hoping to hear that night. I mean, we were just talking songs. I wasn't requesting them, but she goes, "Yeah, all three of those songs were in last night's set list."
Ah, yeah.
Not gonna
See,
hear them
it's
tonight.
torturous.
Not gonna hear them tonight. To
Yeah.
your point, maybe you're onto something there too.
Yeah.
Um,
Brilliant.
I'll be showing up either way. In fact, you guys are going to be, of course, I'm in Louisville, and you guys usually stop in Cincinnati. And this year, it's on my birthday on the date,
No
so
way.
that's how I'm celebrating this year. I'll be at the Garbage
That
Show
I will sing
September.
you. I give you my personal. If you remind me near the time, you will get a personal happy birthday.
Oh, that's something. Yeah, that's yeah.
I
In
will sing
September, I'll
it
be
to you
excited
in
to
front of the crowd.
see you all for that too.
Yes, that would be
Um,
amazing.
this record, as usual, I know I say it every time and I mean it every time. It's so good. I'm so happy and so grateful that you all are still doing what you're doing and doing it in the way you're doing it too. So, thank you as always, every time.
Thank you, Carol. Back at you. I deeply appreciate it, and I know the band do too.
Yeah. And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.